This is Orou Gaoué, who's a graduate student at the University of Hawaii, and he's doing research on plant resource use in West Africa. And so he's going to be able to present some of his work to us today. I gotta say, this guy is absolutely incredible, and it's amazing the range of interests that he has and the kind of scientific intrigue that he explores with. So here's the man.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Orou Gaoué. I'm an international student coming from Benin in West Africa. I'm in the botany program doing my PhD in ethnobotany. I'm happy to really give, the talk for this 105, botany 105 class. I'll be talking today about plants resource use in West Africa, which is part of my interest, my research interest. And basically, I'll be talking in the first part about the ecology and the distribution of, population of human being in Africa and how the two of them, are kind of related or correlated. And I'll be talking in the second part about the different uses of plants, basically in agriculture, talking about their use as medicine, as food, as firewood, and in wood carving, and talking in the last part about the different management system of plants or ecosystem there in Africa, from the traditional one to the modern one, quote unquote. So coming back to the talk itself, we are in Hawaii. As you can see in that slide, I'm showing where we are now in Hawaii, and we'll be talking about Africa, which is the second world largest continent and has also the second world largest rainforest block. And when you take the continent of Africa and you look at the demography, you'll see that the population is not evenly distributed on that continent. If you look at that slide, you'll see the darker part where you have the highest density of human being on the continent. You have, around the equator, you have more people than when you go further from the equator, going to the north or going to the south. And we'll see, which kind of vegetation we have into this different part of the continent. When you look at the vegetation, you'll see in this slide that around the equator, you have the rainforest block. And a little bit further, you have the savanna ecosystem, and that is where people are, more concentrated. That's where you have the highest density, because savanna is pretty much easy to live in savanna than living in the desert or living in the rainforest where it's closed, it's difficult, you have sissy fly, you have all sorts of diseases. So in the Sahara, the desert area, which is about 25% of the continent land, you have, low density of human being. And if you put it back to back, the people and the vegetation, you see clearly, how there is a correlation or relationship between population density and the vegetation density itself. So the most widespread vegetation type in Africa, generally speaking, is savanna. And you have different type of savanna. And depending on the type of savanna that you have, the type of use is different. You have the tree savanna where you have more trees, and you have grasses that are used. But when you go to shrub savanna, which is drier, you have shrub instead of trees mostly, and you have more grass because it's open, and the uses are different there. And to maintain the savanna, people use fire. And they have been using it for a long time. You know, they'll put fire, you know, for different reasons. They'll put it and, you know, to clear the lands, to burn the trees for agricultural purposes. Instead of going there and cutting down all the trees, they'll burn the place, the tree will die, and then they can plow it and put down, you know, their crop. And one of the most important cash crop in West Africa is cotton. And to cultivate cotton, to grow cotton, you need to have, you know, enough sun, you know, on your farm. So people cut down the tree, they burn a lot. So it's a way of using fire, you know, and managing, you know, the landscape. And when you put fire, you have the grass that will resprout. So the resprout are what indigenous people use to feed their animal. There is a specific tribe called the Fulani who use the resprout. They put the fire, and the resprout is good, you know, rich in protein and also mineral, and the cattle will be coming and eating it. And fire is also used for hunting. You put fire in the bush, you corner the rodent, and then you can kill them. And in this slide, you see a fellow who is holding two rodents. The rodent is called, in Bariba language, that is one of the traditional languages in Benin, Gunonu is a way of calling the rodent, and everybody knows that. And everybody is hunting it, especially when you are really young, you know, about 8 to 12-year-old, you go for rodent hunting. It's normal. It's not like here rodents are seen differently than in Africa. It's a matter of culture. So people are really good into hunting that and using fire, because it's the quickest way of cornering them and harvesting and hunting them. In the savannah, one of the resources that people use mostly is the firewood. People are not using gas in rural area. You will not get any electricity. So people use firewood. They'll go in the savannah, cut down shrubs or tree, and use it to make fire. Like in this case, in this slide, you see you know, a little girl trying to cook with firewood. And in this slide, you see, you know, two women who are harvesting firewood during a raining season. During the raining season, it's difficult to get firewood because you have rain, the wood is wet, it's difficult to make fire with it. But because they need it, seriously, they have to go out there and harvest it. It's hard, but they have to do it. And because the firewood crisis is really important, you know, it's whatever you find. In this slide, you see a woman with her baby at the back trying to harvest firewood in a degraded ecosystem. And usually women are the ones who are involved into firewood harvest, but when it becomes serious, men are also involved into it. And you see, I mean, what this man is carrying on his bicycle, it's not the trunk, it's not the branch, but it's the root. It dug out the root, and they'll be using it as firewood because it's missing. It's whatever you find. So in cities, it's a little bit different. You cannot make, you know, fire with the wood and all the smoke in the city. So people use mostly charcoal. And there are different species that are used for charcoal. First of all, you don't use all kind of trees to make charcoal. There are some specific plant species, for example, Anogesis leocarpa and Prosopis africana, that are really good for making charcoal. They burn it out into an anaerobic condition, and you know, to make this charcoal, and people are selling it along the road, like you said, and to cook, you know, in cities. Another way of using plant resource from the savannah or even from the forest in West Africa is for building houses, traditional houses mostly. People use the grass in the savannah to make the roof. To make like the structure of the roof, they use the branches or the trunk of the shrubs. And in this case, you find different type of houses or habitation. You have like for a family, you have rooms for the man, the chief of the family, who may have 1, 2, or 3 wives, and each of them will have his room. And also you have, you know, where to put the cereal, where to store the cereal. They have to build it and use, you know, mostly they use the grass, you know, to build this kind of thing. And depending on the culture and the place where you are, the type of the habitation, the house, you know, structure is different. Like, you know, on this slide you have at the left and at the top, Gaoué is a village in southern Benin, which is, you know, above the water in the lagoon. You have the whole village, which is above the water, and then people use mostly, you know, they use wood and they use plants mostly, you know, like to build their houses. But when you go in the northern part of Benin, the same country in Gaoué, people use, apart from trees, apart from plants, they use the mud, they use clay to build it. So they use less wood than people use, I mean, in the south. And when you go in Tanzania, in the Maasai, you know, people region, or in Congo, formerly called Zaire, the structure of the houses are also different. So depending on the culture, the way you use the resource is different. Another big, very important way of using, you know, the plant resources is wood carving. It's in the culture of people out there, making masks, making pestle, making mortar to cook food, or making canoe. Like here in Hawaii, people will be using the trunk of tree, big trees. They'll be carving it to make the mast. And some specific species are good in making it, like Vitellaria paradoxa, which is the shea tree, and Brachyliana huilensis, which is one of the most endangered plant species in Africa that is used in wood carving. Another important way of using plants in Africa generally, and specifically in West Africa, is the use, I mean, is as food. You use the plant as food, source of food. It may be the leaves, it may be the fruit, and mostly people use the leaves and the fruit. And you have different categories. The first category is the fruit that are not sold in the market, but they are eaten locally. So young people go out there in the bush and harvest them. The Therium microcarpum, which is on the top in this slide, is one of the important, you know, fruit that people use. It's from the Caesarpiniaceae family. And you have also Diospyros mespliformis, which is in the Ebenaceae family, which is down there. Here in Hawaii, you have a Diospyros species, which is called locally llama. So you have another species of the llama tree in Africa, which is, you know, widely used. It's a good fruit that monkey eat. And, you know, locally, when monkey eats a certain fruit, you know, indigenous people think that human being can also eat that, because monkey is close to human. So when the monkey eat it, they can eat it too. Diospyros mespliformis fruit are eaten by monkey, and human being also eat that. It's almost, you know, the same thing for the other. The second category of food or fruit that you have are those that are already into the economic system. They are sold in market. And clockwise, you have at the top, you have Chrysophyllum albidum, which fruit is called azombebe in one local language in Benin. And when you eat that, you know, in the end, you have a kind of chewing gum from that fruit. And you have, I mean, the second one clockwise is Dialium guineensis, from the Sesapiniaceae family. It's a legume that is eaten. You have a little boy there eating Ovaria kame, which is an Anonaceae from the Anonaceae family. And it is really good, it's sweet, it's rich in vitamin C. And, boys as well as adults are really happy, eating it. Tamarindus indica is a tree that you can find on campus here. You have it behind the Dean Hall, which is from the Sesapiniaceae family, which is used as fruit and also as medicine. And that is common. You find, a species which is used for multiple purposes, and the Tamarindus indica is one of the examples. The last one, Vitex doniana, is from the Verbenaceae family. The leaves are really good vegetable that people use. It's a leafy vegetable, and the fruit is the black one that you see there. It's really, really good. It has a good aroma, and it's sold. People make money from using it. Borassus ethiopium is one of the palm trees that you have in Africa compared to other part of the world where you have many palm species. In Africa, Borassus ethiopium is one of the few that you find there. And every part of that plant is used. The fruit, like you can see at the top, is used. People eat it, they boil it, they put salt into it, and eat it. And the trunk is used for house building, and you have the fruit that can make it germinate, and you have the hypocotyl, which is used, and eaten with coconut, and it's really good. Another way of using plants in West Africa is as medicine. Generally, every single plant has a medicinal use. You just need to know it. You just need to be aware of it. And there are key plants that people use mostly, especially to treat malaria, which is one of the most important and, killing people. I mean, the most important disease that kill people mostly in West Africa. And you have Asonia boini, which is a malaria, it's a plant that people use, to treat malaria. They use the bark. You have, apart from that, Kigelia africana, which you find here on campus. You get it at Vinyl Cycle. It's the sausage tree. It's an African tree used also to fight malaria. You have also Nucleate latifolia, which is Rubiaceae, and you have Garcinia cola, which is a Clusiaceae in the Clusiaceae family. And that fruit you are seeing is red. And the fruit, the indigenous people, they take the nut from it, and they eat that nut as a cola nut. When you are having problem with your throat, or you are a singer and you want your voice to be clear, people use that. And they use it also into this mystical, thing, like Silopia ethiopica, which is almost in all the recipes. You have Silopia ethiopica. It's really spicy. It's a spice, plant. The fruit is really spicy, and it's from the Anonaceae family. Vitellaria paradoxa is the key food tree species in West Africa. It's also known as the shea butter tree. It's from the Sapotaceae family, and people make butter of it. And the butter is used in cosmetic. Even here in the United States, the agora, is a kind of contract between United States and African, country to use, the resource for, commercialization. And Vitellaria paradoxa is one of the main species people are interested in from West Africa. The trees are also used to feed animals, to feed cattle, because during the dry season, as I told you, the savanna, you have trees, you have grass. When the people put fire, the grass will be removed, and then they prune the tree, and they use the leaves of the tree to feed their animal. So a specific tribe called the Fulani tribe that you find in West Africa are involved into this activity of pruning trees, and it's culturally important for them to harvest that tree. And Caya senegalensis is one of the species that is harvested to feed animal, and is a species on which I'm working for my PhD. Apart from that species, you have Afzelia africana, you have Pterocarpus erinaceus, and Isoberlinia doca, that are species, used by indigenous people as timber and also as a source of fodder. And timber harvesting is one of the activity. Indigenous people are really not involved into it, but people come from the city, to put them into that harvesting, system. The last thing, the last part of the talk is about the management of the landscape or the ecosystem of the plant. And one of the way of managing, the landscape or the plant resources are traditional agroforestry system. Indigenous people, when they are clearing the land, they don't remove everything. They spare some trees that they think is really important for them as food, source of leaves or vegetable, or as firewood. And because of that, when you look at the landscape, you see some dot. Those dots are trees, really important for them. Another way of managing the resources is making a patch of forest sacred so that people will not go there and harvest. And it is pretty common in West Africa and also in other parts of the world, like in Latin America, to have this sacred grove. People use voodoo, and the voodoo is not something about vampires. It's a religion. It's like Christianism. It's like Buddhism. It's like Islam. It's people's belief that they use because everyone is afraid of God. Everyone doesn't want to do something that God doesn't want. People use that concept by putting the voodoo into a forest, or the voodoo is already in the forest, and because of that, people don't want to go there to harvest the tree or harvest the resources unless they are asked to do so or they have the permission from the God to do it. And that way they reduce the deforestation, they reduce the unsustainable way of managing the resource. In the past, the forest authority, they use the protectionist way of conserving forests, which means they will declare some part of the forest or part of the country protected legally, and no one is allowed to go in there to harvest anything. But after 10, 15 years, using that system of conserving the resource, they notice that it's not working because indigenous people always need to go and harvest in those ecosystems. They have been doing it for a long time and they will not stop today. Their life and the life of the plants are bound. They really need it. So the authorities, forest authorities, start now to develop a different system, which is the community-based management of natural resources, where they involve indigenous people looking at their objective, what they need to use, what are the plants which are important for them, and develop a way of using the plant, harvesting them, but keeping it in the environment. So conserving it and using it. So that is what I would like to talk about today related to plant use in West Africa. And I would like to thank very much Dr. Tamara Ticktin, Dr. Will McClatchy, Dr. Michael Thomas, and the whole crew who helped with developing this film. Thank you very much.